While clearing out her family attic, Claire Donovan unclasped the brass latch on a weathered trunk that had sat undisturbed for decades. Inside, among brittle railroad bonds and faded letters, she found a leather photo album with its spine cracked from age. The album contained standard 19th-century portraits until the very last page. Tucked inside a wax paper sleeve was a photograph of Abraham Lincoln standing with Generals Grant and Meade. Unlike every other surviving image of the era, this print displayed deep blue uniforms and the distinct wood grain of a chair in full, natural color. Chromogenic dyes were not supposed to exist in 1865. Forensic analysis revealed that the pigments, derived from organic sources like indigo, were embedded directly into the silver print emulsion. The lab confirmed this was a guarded prototype. It utilized an experimental chemical process that remained undocumented in standard photographic history, suggesting the image was produced for a specific, private purpose. The composition of the group was just as unusual as the color. Standing centrally between Lincoln and Grant was a man in a plain Union uniform. He carried no rank on his shoulders and no stripes on his sleeves, yet he occupied a place of prominence among the military's highest leadership. Claire identified the figure by comparing the photo to a family portrait from 1912. The jawline and the slope of the eyebrows were identical. The man standing with the president was her great-great-grandfather, William Donovan. Donovan's official service record, however, tells a different story. He was listed as a medic for the 104th New York Infantry, but his tenure with the regiment ended abruptly just days before the war concluded. The archive contains a final entry in the remarks column. It lists William Donovan as missing in action as of April 6, 1865. This creates a conflict between the official record and the physical evidence. If Donovan vanished in the field on April 6th, the government records suggest he was no longer part of the Union Army when this photograph was taken 3 days later. Historians at the New York Historical Society began searching through misfiled military correspondence to explain Donovan's presence at Appomattox. They recovered a field memo referencing a shadow post created at the request of Al, the private shorthand used by Lincoln's personal staff. The memo indicated that certain personnel were to be removed from their regiments and left off all standard military logs. This documentation points to the existence of the Presidential Escort Committee. Lincoln established this network in his final days to act as an informal guard, operating outside the visibility of his cabinet and the traditional military chain of command. Donovan's MIA status was the administrative mechanism used to transition him into this role. He became a silent operative, reporting directly to the president, while his official identity was effectively erased from history. To confirm Donovan's role, the lab ran high-resolution spectral scans on the photograph, looking for any insignia missed by the naked eye. The scan revealed a small patch stitched underneath the fold of the jacket lapel. It bore the letters PEC, the mark of the Presidential Escort Committee. Further analysis of the wool itself showed a second layer of thread. This was not a standard part of the uniform or the insignia, but a message hand-sewn into the fabric using a thread slightly lighter than the surrounding coat. The forensic scan isolated the words, "Target verified, stand until April 14th. April 14th was the night Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater. The directive shows Donovan was assigned to a specific watch ending on that date, yet his name never reappears in any government or civilian record following the event. The existence of this photograph suggests Lincoln wanted a specific visual record of this group preserved with a clarity that standard black and white plates couldn't offer. Claire found a potential explanation within the album itself. Tucked into a hidden pocket in the back lining was a separate, unaddressed envelope. Inside was a letter signed by Al. It instructed Donovan to stand visible in the presence of the generals, but to accept that history would likely overlook his contribution. This image functioned as a time capsule. Lincoln commissioned an experimental process to create a lasting record for a future generation, then entrusted the evidence to a man who had been removed from the history books. Names like Grant and Meade are preserved through decades of military archives and public monuments. William Donovan's service was defined by its lack of documentation. The empty wooden chair in the frame serves as a visual placeholder. It represents the space Donovan was assigned to fill, a role that required him to be present in the room while remaining officially invisible. Donovan followed the instructions in the letter, remaining undocumented long after the war ended. He kept the photograph hidden as a private record, and his family honored that silence for over a century. History is often built from the records of those who stood in the light, but this discovery suggests the narrative is also shaped by the figures who were assigned to watch from the shadows.